Kevin at one point in the meeting.
Started
We
video,
can start. Yep.
and we're recording.
We are recording.
You're recording, okay. Good evening, everybody. I am the acting mayor tonight. For those of you that are
Recording in progress.
Oh, for those of you who are excited to see Tom, we'll give you a couple minutes to exit. For now, I want to call the meeting to order. Bodema here, Nichols.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Varenkamp.
Here.
Mayor McKee is excused. Please rise with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jess, do you want to walk through the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We do have some changes and additions requested for tonight's agenda. We did receive some additional documentation from Wright Huntington related to the receipt of funds for the land. We have some revised resolutions for Amberley, second edition, and Bellwether 9th due to a change in stormwater language. We have one additional claim for an approved CIP purchase. We have, during the administration staffing, I do have a job description for administrative assistant. We did receive some resident comments for Wright Hennepin. And then we have the March 24th meeting minutes and are seeking removal of 7B under consent agenda for the draft work session minutes. We have a set sale summary and red line version of the bond sale resolution. We did have a bond sale today, and so we did have updated information in front of you. And then we do have a few other items. Item 8C, actually 8E is going to be the purchase agreement extension for St. Therese. It's just a formal extension of the purchase agreement. We have a 10C was added but has been since asked to be removed by the stanchion for a noise waiver request. Then we have 10D, which is a state aid request to allocate some funds for state aid that we received. And then item 10E is acting administrator, just appointing an acting administrator while I am out of town. So with that, I ask for approval of the agenda.
Does anybody want to make any additions or amendments to the agenda? I would like to pull 9A into consent. Can we do that?
I second that.
We certainly
Makes sense.
can. If you would
We've
like
been-
to talk about the rate that we got today, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, that's been we've discussed it a lot. So I have a second. Yeas?
Yay.
Any nays? Okay.
Can I verify the second on that?
Yep.
That was Dean's.
Okay. We don't need a roll call since agenda is approved. We have commission representatives Chulak and Strahler. Is Jim here?
He is joining us virtually.
How many are with us virtually?
We currently have 10 members joining, 10 participants virtually.
Okay. One thing that I'd like to do a little different, slightly nuanced, is each opportunity we have a presentation, and everything that we will be presented is in the packet. So what I'd like to do is, if you need to hear the presentation, we can certainly have the presentation, but what I would like to do is go right into the discussion without a presentation if it's not unnecessary. Just FYI. So general open forum, if anybody's interested to speak, please dial *9 on their phone or use the raise hand video feature. And do you know of anybody that's interested in speaking?
Mayor, at this time, we do have No one raising their hand online. We do have one comment card. Would you like to speak under the planning items? Right. We have one comment card for planning, but no one currently under the raise, or no one currently is raising their hand virtually. And if anyone would like to come up for open forum, can do so.
So
We're good to move forward.
I'd entertain a motion to close open forum.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to speak in open forum about a topic not on the agenda.
Yeah. Could you please give us your name and your address?
My name is Jeremy Nichols. I live at 6334 Steeplechase Lane in Corcoran, Minnesota.
Do you want to go there or there?
The microphone works just as fine here, so
Okay.
I'll probably just stay where I am, thanks. So I wanted to bring up a topic. We've had a lot of concern in the city, and I think outside of Corcoran as well in neighboring communities, about property values going up and it being reflected on property tax statements people are receiving from the county. I know I've heard folks complain to me about $100,000 plus increases in their property values. And the Minneapolis Fed came out with a report back in November that I did a little bit of research on. They've determined that in the Minneapolis area, currently about 4% of single-family homes are now rentals, up from 2% in 2006. And they're saying that that trend is increasing. About 10% of homes sold in Minnesota are flipped to become rentals by corporate investors in that report. There is a bill that the League of Minnesota Cities has advanced that deals with housing affordability, and one of the provisions of that plan is the creation of a state-level excise tax on investment properties that are run by corporations. That resolution that is under, or the bill that is under, is HF 2880. For those who are concerned about housing affordability, and especially about your own property values being driven up by this trend, that would be one way for you to take action to try to counter it. And the county is not especially receptive to people pleading for valuations to be adjusted downward because the market actually has gone up. Part of why it's gone up is because we have an investment community short of places to invest that's driving up residential real estate prices. So we just want to make people aware of that opportunity for you to advocate for yourself in this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Second.
Bottom, yay. Nichols,
Yay.
Schultz,
Yay.
Varenkamp.
Yay.
My favorite part of being on council is the recognition of those in service. And Matt, do you have some things to say? We have 2 police officers getting rewarded for 15 years of service in our town. And it's awesome. We have a lot of good police officers, and I'm honored to be part of this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you said, both officers tonight have spent 15 years helping our community, and they've had countless cases where they've had a personal impact on people's lives. And they've both done a tremendous job, and they're a key part of the growth and development in our department. They've seen a lot of changes in the community and everything that we've evolved as a community, but also as a police department. So, the first officer that we want to recognize tonight is Officer Jesse Olson. And again, 15 years of service to the community, and he's also helped out in a number of ways in helping teach and grow our department. He's involved in all things firearms, including training, and one of our key members of our field training staff. So he's also one of the key parts of training up a lot of our newer, younger hires. So thank you, Jesse, for everything you do for us, and come forward and be recognized for your 15 years.
His 3 kids are under contract also.
The next officer, Dwayne Hodgstetler, again, been such a huge part of our department. Again, another guy that helps keep us on track with all things firearms, and just really being one of the, definitely a leader and a solid standing force for all of our new people coming on board. And appreciate everything that you've done for us, Dwayne, and the impacts that you've had on our community. You've been a part of it for a long time, and not only that impact, but the firearm safety program, and lived in the community for a while, so thank you for everything that you've given us for over the years, and we really appreciate everything that you've done and are doing for us, so thank you.
Good to see you, Dwayne. Take care, man.
Nice job, both of you. Thank you so much for your service. On to planning business. Consent agenda, I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda. Thank you, Alan.
I'd like to pull a couple items.
Okay.
I'd like to pull item 7E and then what we added 7K for the bond.
7K would be the bonds,
Yeah,
the bond issuance, so you'd like to pull 7K as well.
correct.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda consisting of everything except for E and K.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 4-0.
Okay, 7E, a neighbor in the community, Bellwether, told me about a bunch of trees they thought were cut down in what would be our future nature area park. Could you speak to that? Is that a true statement, a myth?
Sure, I will, Kevin, take that, but
There was a group, when we approved the early grading permit a couple months ago, so they've been out there doing site grading. There was one cul-de-sac that was in a future phase as part of the original approvals that had another significant amount of trees that came down recently. But that was all part of the original approvals. So there was nothing added. In accordance with our early grading permit, we marked the tree line and all that. So it did go up into the southern lobe of what is now our open space park, but that was all part of the original approvals.
Okay, thank you. And then my other point on the bond, could Tammy speak to just what our rate was?
sure, if council is.
Yeah.
comfortable with that. Tammy Amdahl from Northland Securities.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council, the final true interest cost was 3.09%. I would also note the final par amount was 1.8 million because the refunding bonds were pulled because of the increase in rates.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tammy.
Mayor, if I may approach after you approve the consent in this item, there's a contract that's time sensitive, different than your other contracts that I need to leave with, if that is okay with the mayor and the city administrator.
You mean right here, right now? Yeah,
After you approve it.
yes.
Mayor, before she moves, I have a question.
Sure.
That's okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Tammy. Quick question for you. In light of these rates, does this have any impact on the analysis you did for us last time on the water system?
Mayor, council member, it does not. We were actually being, what we hope to be conservative in estimating the rate on the water improvements. I did not bring all that detail with me tonight, so I don't recall, but we certainly were making the assumption that this current rate environment is going to hold for a period of time.
Okay, so we weren't assuming 2.25
No.
in that or something? Okay,
We're not.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion then to approve item 7E and K.
Second.
Yeah, all approved.
I second.
Please say aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Yes. It's not often I have to forge Tom's signature, but I'm just kidding. I don't have to forge his signature. Planning business. Jessica, if, I guess I can say, if anybody's interested to speak, press star on their phone or use the hand-raised video feature. Also, do you wish to read some of the comments we've gotten, or we've got them in our packet as part of today's packet? Is there anybody else that wants to speak in person?
Sure. We have received one comment card from Tim Sullivan for the planning items. And if anyone else does want to speak on planning items, if you could come to the podium after Tim and give your name and address. And anyone watching can press star 9 or raise your hand. But if you're comfortable, go.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Tim Sullivan, President and CEO of Right-Hennepin Cooperative Electric Association. I'll be brief. Tonight is the 7th time in 14 months that the Right-Hennepin Corcoran 2 substation has been before a city body. Most recently, 2 weeks ago, in front of this city council. Now, consistent with a court order from 8 weeks ago, Right-Hennepin took possession of the property in your application earlier this week. We also supplied to city staff and to the city attorney confirmation of payment for the collection of that property. What hasn't changed in 2 weeks is the substance of the proposal. I will be brief in describing it. That proposal enjoys the support of Right-Hennepin and city staff. It embeds the Planning Commission's recommendations from earlier this month, including extending the berm, much more robust landscaping, including double-spaced trees and larger trees. It includes slatting in the fencing, and it includes a monument, among other items. In fact, the application embeds trees 2.5 times in excess of city requirements. I would remind this council that this substation is critical to serving the needs of hundreds of new Corcoran residents moving into this community, into developments already greenlit and approved by this council. We believe this proposal has been thoroughly vetted. We believe it is responsive, and we believe it merits your support. We believe this application will well serve the long-term interests of the city of Corcoran, of your residents, and of our membership, and we would ask you tonight for its swift and full approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else?
Someone is approaching. We don't have anyone joining us virtually raising their hand.
My name is Greg Hogan. I'm at 19220 Hackamore Road. I just want to, you spoke last time, and I can't sit here and listen to your comments without just a little rebuttal. The issue here is not more than likely that...
Hey, Greg, could you please address the council?
Yeah, okay.
Not-
The issue here tonight is you're going to get your approval. And it's, I don't really feel bad that you've had to have some delay in the process over the last few months. You made the comment last time that the cornerstone of America is that people have electricity coming into their home. I would also say a cornerstone of America is if you own some land and somebody wants to come in and use eminent domain to take your land. And the framing of that is we've looked at a lot of properties, and this is the only property that we can find that's available. I know how the mind works, is we should all feel very fortunate that the landowner is given some compensation for their land. And the average person would say, boy, she's getting paid for their land. The issue here is the landowner had 40 acres of land. A utility is using the eminent domain process to take 5 of it or 6 of it and give 1 of the acres back. And just the positioning that you've been delayed, or that it's been some long process for you, I feel more for the landowner 100% of the time. And again, I thank Mrs. Sween for having the courage to stand up here, which most people would not do, and fight a utility that's taking their land, and that is what I applaud. So I just want to reference, I don't feel at all bad that you've had to endure a few months of pain while you're taking somebody's land.
Thanks, Greg. Do you guys want to head right into the discussion? I feel like, maybe in this one I'll go first. I will say that there's a bunch of stuff I agree with, and we've expressed countless times our opposition to a lot of the things that have happened prior to this meeting. And we want to focus on the task at hand, which is the Planning Commission suggestions on landscaping that we had directed them to make. The reason why I would like to start is, I will just say that I'm sort of agnostic on the landscaping plans. And part of it is my opposition was the sound initially and the proximity to other houses. And part of my opposition was they didn't own the land, and we were very clear about that last time. My agnostic part is, I'm not a big fan of those slots that Planning Commission requested. I'm also not necessarily a fan of a wall or a berm. And when it comes to that, I actually like that there's the cleanliness of trees as a border. And I also, if you read the packet, some of the berm would be on city property, which we've never done that before. It seems a little odd to me. So for me, if you look at the site on Trailhaven, which is similar to this, it does not have slats, it does not have a berm. They have a monument. They have less trees than we're going to have here. And it probably looks better without a berm or slats, in my opinion. But I'm probably the least qualified person in this room to have an opinion on those sort of things. Everything in my world is square, and I don't always understand why people don't appreciate square, but that's just me. So I'm sort of counting on you to help me out in understanding what we should think about here.
I think it's helpful to separate the landscape requirements, which are independent in the zoning ordinance, the requirement that it be screened, which only exists because it is a large structure that requires screening. That's separate from landscaping. And then it requires security because of the kind of facility that it is, and that's what drives the barbed wire. I liked what the Planning Commission recommended in terms of the natural screening and the berms on the west and the north. We got a comment from a resident who runs a garden center and a garden contracting company that had a lot of good insights that I think we should consider as part of that. My only concern with this, outside of some tweaking here and there with tree sizes and that sort of thing, is on the east side, where it's only going to be a single row, and currently it would abut a medium-density residential neighborhood. I don't think we get enough of the right kind of screening from the plan as it's drafted. If that was not going to be residential, if that was going to be the backside of a bank or something like that, where there's not going to be that kind of residential impact, I would think that it's fine. So I'd like to discuss what we might do on that one side if it's going to stay residential. I don't know if anybody heard from Susie or the trustee on what their plans might be. We expressed, as a council, the willingness to be flexible on the zoning in that area within reason. Anybody hear from her on that?
I have to apologize if I had heard that I had said that I was going to contact her after the last meeting. And I didn't contact her at the end. I didn't contact her over the last 2 weeks. And so part of the problem with sometimes, we actually can't talk to each other before these meetings. And if we do, we can only reach out to one person. So what you see is like, you think, oh, we should have had this conversation earlier, but we couldn't.
Mayor Bottom,
Yes.
I did contact
Okay.
Susie the day after
Oh, good.
and recommended that her representatives come up with an idea and a plan and then get with city staff. I don't know if that's happened. I do see Susie in the audience, so.
So that's a kind of a separate and unique conversation.
Yep.
But I think no matter what goes back there, unless it's a warehouse, the screening on that side
Yeah.
should probably be improved. I can't think of anything.
I think it was originally ghost platted for actually a road next to the property. So besides the one row of trees, a road, and then whatever would happen beyond that. But again, that's a ghost plat. And again, the situation is such that none of us like the way it was done or anything, but we have no option about that. But I would like to do everything I can to make it fit. Again, if it's gonna be mixed residential, it would be nice to see even more screening on that side than on the west, in my mind. But I know what the planning commission recommended. Almost flip-flop to in my mind. Your ideas and your thoughts on chain link, slatted and such, I had mentioned, and again, I took it to the extreme of concrete, sound walls, sound things. I was just thinking and throwing something against the wall to see if it would stick, to see if there was something better than chain link out there. I still believe that a vinyl or something that was more blocking would do better. I like your thoughts and ideas about what's over off of Lawndale. But I do think that the trees over on the Lawndale substation and such, I think now the number of trees around this, they're actually planted as the same as the one over on Lawndale, I think, when it was done, or might be a little bit more distance between the trees, but originally it was like 27 feet between trees, 30 feet between trees. I think we're down to 17 feet between trees. The Lawndale substation has grown significantly over the many years it's been there, and it looks very, very nice now. This is a way bigger substation than what's going on there, and I'd love to see it
Yeah.
look as good as that one does out of the gate instead of 20 years down the road. It looks good, so.
Do you guys know who maintains the area around your substation by the Rogers?
It
Is that
wouldn't be Rogers, it'd be Maple Grove. Are you talking Lawndale?
Are you talking the one
Oh, I'm
at
talking
Trail
about
Haven or the
Trail
one?
Haven.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know who maintains it?
We either do it directly or we have a service,
Oh,
a
okay.
direct contractor.
Okay.
I got mixed up there. I thought you were talking Lawndale. I was comparing it to the Lawndale one and what the planning commission put in front of
Oh, okay.
us is, it's similar tree spacing and such as the Lawndale property.
Okay.
You've been down there, down by Station 5.
The Trail Haven properties, tree coverage is much less. then.
But it's a nice look. I agree with the look of that substation also,
Yeah, I mean,
without the chain link, without those.
I don't think they have barbed wire on that one either.
I'm not a fan about it, but I understand the need.
Do you have
Keep
barbed
people
wire
out.
on the Trailhaven substation?
Do we have any tree counts, or, I'm sorry?
Barbed wire on top of the?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'd have to say the big difference that I noticed about Lawndale, and I could be totally wrong, but when I drove by it, it looked like the substation was below the grade of the road
I agree, yeah.
versus this will be above grade. So it's gonna be more pronounced from a distance. So whatever trees that are out there cover a lot more with a limited number of trees. My biggest thing is that when we talk about the linear park and whatnot, this linear park was designed to be like a focal point of the city. So, to me, the screening on that should be relatively a high bar. And then, I agree, if you could screen better on the east side, I'd be all for it. But as you pointed out, there's probably a ghost plot for
I think it was a road that was gonna run next there.
yeah, and as far as committing to whatever would be on that future property, I'm happy to look at any plans that come up, but they have to, whoever is the landowner has to bring a plan to us. So, that's why I would prefer as high a discretion of landscaping as we can. I understand the concrete wall issue and having that, but I think slotted chain link fence will help diffuse sound. And it'll help provide a background for the trees to blend with versus looking through the trees and still seeing a chain link fence or seeing structure behind it. So I would suggest that if we're gonna take recommendations from the planning commission, we do include the slotted fencing, we do include the maximum amount of trees we can. As Heidi pointed out in her email, bigger trees, staggered rows. You know, I agree with you, the berming on city property is not ideal. Given it's gonna be a linear park, it probably fits in that regard. It's not coming at our expense.
Okay.
And I said this with St. Therese, and I'd say it with this too. I'd rather get as many trees, even in the linear park area, to screen it as possible and cut them down later if they're in our way. You know, because if we don't develop it for 30 years, I've got 30 years of growth in a tree that I'm
Yeah.
gonna cut down later versus having no growth in an empty field.
I like the idea of trees.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we can do more on the north end, I'm all for that. I understand the limitations to the south, but I think Heidi brings up some good points with that too, so. Try to encompass as much as we can. I personally don't have a need for a monument sign.
I would agree. I'd rather they spend the money on additional larger trees than put in a monument.
And to your point about security and cameras, I think money has to be well spent in that. You know, some type of an alarm system. I'd rather have an alarm going off alerting us that somebody's there versus you pulling up on a camera later after the vandalism's been done. So,
Is the security system, is it for us or for them?
well, it really is
For them.
protection of all of us, really, because if somebody vandalizes the infrastructure here, it's gonna affect the residents of our community.
Yeah, I assume that they have a security system on all of their,
Well, what it sounded like before is there's cameras, correct? But there's nothing that notifies the authorities that somebody's on your site.
Oh, very much so.
yeah.
Oh, there is?
This council will appreciate, I'm reluctant to get into all of our security procedures
We want passcodes and everything.
in a public setting. I can tell you this, our substations are monitored 24/7, 365. And they have to be. because that's the power requirement out of that substation, is 24/7, 365. I'd also just share with this council, Great Hennepin owns WH Security, the largest independent security company in the state. We also own WHIRC, which is the largest alarm monitoring center in the state. 65,000 accounts in 35 states. We know a lot about security, both for substations, monitoring, rolling trucks, working with law enforcement if there is, God forbid, a break-in or some sort of incident. Beyond that, I hope this council will appreciate I'm reluctant to share more in a public setting.
No, that's fine.
So I figure whatever we tell them to do on security is
I'm guessing they
less
know a
than their own
security company.
standard.
Yeah,
They know.
as long as they know it's a concern.
Yeah, yeah. Kevin, do you have things you feel like we should know?
Which Kevin?
The one that was scheduled to speak on this topic.
Kevin Shea.
Is there anything we haven't unturned here that it's just burning that you need to tell us?
Yeah, no, I believe council's covered everything and it was all in your packets.
Okay, thank you. Yes, all right, appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, could I say my thoughts and feelings on the delay of this?
No,
Okay,
we're not going to cover that. We've
I
covered it.
understand. I wanted to get it out there.
But
That's okay.
you can, it's your time. So I would say it's off topic, but if you want to speak your mind about it, you can.
My biggest thing is, it was a train that wasn't on a rail from the start, not having the i's dotted and t's crossed in the contract and such. I hope we, as an administration, our administration does that better, and I also hope the applicant for those things do better. All of the things that have happened from everybody and all of the concerns that everybody's had, I think it can be done better, and I want somebody to ensure us as a council and mayor, no matter who's up here, the next time this comes, it's done better from all sides. And it's a hard thing to swallow, the eminent domain kind of things, but I understand. There's been significant conversations and many people have expressed their thoughts on that. I understand that, I respect that, but I think it could have been done a lot faster, a lot quicker with everybody on the same page. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. So, thank you for that time.
Yeah, I think that some changes in the order of how early council gets involved with some of these massive things will probably help the process.
Yeah.
So what are the decision points here? We have the planning commission has come forward with their recommendations. And it sounds like we agree with most of them, correct? Are there any that we want to take out?
I wouldn't remove any of them. I would look to exchange the monument sign for additional large trees. I think particularly I see a need on that east side, where there's only a single row and there's not as much depth to cover.
Okay.
I would also like to, so Heidi makes a couple points, and I apologize, this wasn't put into the packet because it came in after the packet was published. Some of the items are not the size that they're listed in the plan. Like the Norway spruce and the Lanham's beehive are roughly half the size in reality as they were quoted as. So maybe revisions to those. I don't know how much you want to get into in the resolution. But whatever staff can do to maximize the size and coverage, and I think especially keeping in mind the idea that the deciduous trees are not going to screen the fence. So that's got to come from something else, because they're going to be above that height.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with we should incorporate as much as what Heidi said. Unfortunately, I can't find my,
Do you want to read what Heidi said?
It's like 3 pages.
I know. How do you want to enter that into the public record?
Well, it can be added to the record because she emailed it in. It can be appended as part of.
Okay.
And we have included it in the formal agenda packet that we keep here at the city. So we do have it included in that. And Kevin and I were just trying to discuss how we might modify Resolution 2022-24. If we do want to remove the monument sign, we just remove item 4. And then
It'd be item H4.
H4, and then item, which was H5, that provides larger trees than the minimum requirement, is something we can work with the applicant on. So I think that last item should cover if we could get more trees, larger trees.
And I know we needed findings of fact if we wanted to increase the level of screening. And so what I would say for that, while the chain link with slats blocks the view of the station, it's not commensurate with the residential zoning that surrounds the area. That's more of an industrial. And honestly, I feel we need screening from that security fence, not so much from the equipment that's inside the security fence. And that's where those landscape requirements above and beyond the minimum requirements in code for every site would come into play. And I think the updated plans do a pretty good job on the west side and the north side, especially when those things mature. But there are probably still going to be some gaps there. I had asked prior to the meeting for some insight as to what the graphics, what year the graphics are rendered at. Are we looking at 30 years into the future? Are we looking at 5 years into the future? Because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to pass by that in the interim. And that would be a support for a higher level of landscape requirement. Because you're not going to be at the 80% screening from that security fence, which is part of the site security.
I think the gist of Heidi's email, just for the applicant's sake, is some structural changes in the vegetation that some trees are top-heavy, some trees are bottom-heavy in their branches and the opaqueness, and she just suggested a mix that was more conducive to having trees that will fill the space. And that's basically the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
The monument sign, do you guys generally put that up, or do the cities, like, you'll put up a monument sign no matter what, so we don't really have to worry about having it be part of, the ask is, I think, like, we don't need to ask them for a monument sign, they're just, that's part of their process anyways. So where are you, Dean, on the slats? Alan kind of liked the slats. Jeremy was not.
Again, I was looking for something that would block more the view of it, period. But I think with what the planning commission recommended, the chain link, the slats, again, not my favorite screen, but a lot more vegetation, a lot more trees. And I think us expressing our comments, and I think our administrative staff will work with Wright Hennepin to possibly look at different. I know the applicant has their own person that's helping with that and such, but I respect Heidi's opinion a lot.
Yeah,
That's absolutely her business. And
so for the sake of the preliminary plat, I think we all are in agreement on the berm. We all are in agreement on putting more trees on the east side of the substation than is currently in the application, and some different trees that maybe will screen better. But the chain fence with the slat is, it sounds like you want the slats. Am I accurate in that? Jeremy doesn't want them. Dean,
No slats.
I would put them in
They can always come out.
because it's a good background, but I feel like it's an industrial screen, and you need to screen that from a residential area.
I think the planning commission heard from our city planner about beige colored slats.
Yes.
And I would suggest they not be beige, but they be actual more of a green to match up with the look of an evergreen or the look of foliage on a tree, so they blend with that. So it adds some depth to the view of trees.
so in the applicants, you had some comments about the walls out impacting negatively the power production because of the flow issue. What about the slats? Are they similar or different?
The slats are acceptable to Red Hemp.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Are they removable?
I don't know exactly what they look like or what the requirement is.
I should slide them out
They'll-
of a chain link fence, right?
Is that what it is?
Yep, it's right there.
Yeah, they just
in our
slide up and down.
presentation.
Are there other issues?
The landscape plan, the wording of it, what bothers me is when we use words like "if possible." Who decides what's possible?
So it would generally be reviewed by staff for approval. They'll come back and revise it, and then we would have final say on approval of the landscape plan. Is
Okay.
that correct?
Yes.
And then maybe Kevin can speak to this, Kevin Mattson. Is there an issue with the site design that there's not enough space between the north property line and the holding pond for berming up there?
I think their site is full. I don't have, intimate knowledge of the actual plan. They hire an engineer to do that, but, I think they've maximized the site, which is why it's kind of encroaching into the linear park. I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I don't think there's a lot of, they've maximized the land that they've provided.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering is, as part of the building of the runoff pond, couldn't they have built a wall of the runoff pond higher to effectively create a berm in that regard? Is there,
I may need some help from planning, because I wasn't part of all the, I think they were focusing on trying to screen certain views, and I don't know if the north view was previously in that conversation. There may be a way to elevate that. Really, we just need an EOF, so you could certainly potentially build that up. There's minimum grades that we'd look at, but I think primarily they were focusing on different views, and I don't know if the north view, I guess, was a priority in any of the planning conversations. I can't speak to that.
Yeah, the west was more of the focus at the point, a little bit of south and north and west, but screening from the public view of the linear park and the right of way for the county roads surrounding that part of the site.
yeah. I mean, to me, that's really our only discussion here tonight,
What?
is the landscaping. You can't, effectively, the land is what the land is.
Yes.
That's out of our control. The people's comments, it's the state that allowed people to have eminent domain and utilities the right to use them. It's not our discretion. Our discretion is the protection of what's around it. So, and that's the unfortunate nature of it, so.
One of the discussion points I heard was related to the east side. Currently, the we don't talk about the landscape plan needing to be revised on the east side, but that is something that we've had some discussion on. If it at all possible, allow for additional screening on the east.
Either additional plantings or larger plantings than originally planned, I think would be a fair way to put it. And what level of review will the city council have when it comes to final? What do we need to put into the preliminary approval to ensure that that'll be adequate?
Good question.
So as in terms of discretion on the final plat, when that comes through, that would just be conformance with the preliminary plat. So any conditions or things that the council would wish to see would be done at this stage with the approvals.
Right.
Because when it comes back with final plat, that's just if it conforms to preliminary plat, which would be just lot layout, lot lines, things like that, not necessary or not purview to the landscaping, fencing, slats, those types of discussions.
Okay. So I'm going to take a stab at this,
Can I ask one more question?
please.
Planner Kevin, at one point, there was a conversation that when that Ghost Plat Road went to the east side, that the driveway would change from off of Larkin to that road, and I think I made that comment back then. I would just prefer not having that. The entrance to this site is off of Larkin, and we don't change that. I don't see anything in here about future driveway change or anything like that. So did that stuck, or is there a chance? Because I still see the gap on that northern and eastern corner between the trees. And I'd rather it just be, here's your driveway, it's off of Larkin, that road will be upgraded to handle whatever to serve this substation. I'd rather not change the eastern border of this at all by adding a driveway.
The current plan is for them to access off of Larkin. We don't know when or if that future road would connect through, so it's to stay on Larkin. That can be
Okay.
discussed at a later time, in the future, 10, 20 years, whenever that road comes through. But their current access on Larkin will remain their access unless something changed and there was
Okay.
a recommendation otherwise.
All right, thanks for giving me that. That gave Jeremy that
I got
time
some
to
time to
add more
squiggle.
things.
So
Get him.
here's what I would propose. On the resolution, item H, there's I through V right now. I would propose that we add 6, VI, berms and trees sufficient to provide 80% opacity to the fence. At year 3, on the northeast and west sides. And only as high as the fence itself goes, not the 60-foot tall poles.
Makes sense.
So the 4-foot berm on that west side gets you a lot of that. If they can berm on the north, that would help too. The east, where you can't berm, that just means those trees have to be bigger. You've got to get a little bit more creative with what you plant on that east side.
Was that a motion?
It's language for discussion,
Okay.
You said at year 3 to how high?
as high as the fence, top of the fence.
And the fence is what, it's like an 8-foot fence?
It doesn't say in the resolution. I think staff said it's 7 feet tall. But I wouldn't specify that in the resolution unless we also control the fence height in the resolution, just so that they stay together.
And we generally approve fences via a fence permit, so we don't generally outline the height within the resolution. I understood it.
Well, if we don't outline the height of the fence, and his proposal is to the fence height, we almost want to say to a minimum height.
The challenge that you would have is if they end up deciding, well, now we want a 9-foot fence.
What if they
Unless you
decide a
control the
3-foot
fence height too. Yeah, well then, I don't know. I don't think from their security concerns, 3 feet would be adequate.
I couldn't jump it, I'll say that.
3 feet?
And then we would potentially strike 4, the provide a monument sign with landscaping.
Yeah, I think 4 could be definitely stricken. I don't know what the impact of the recommendation is, but
Just to clarify, this fence is proposed to be a 7-foot tall fence currently.
Thank you, Kevin.
I could support that.
That's your motion?
I will make it into a motion if there's no further dispute.
If,
So I'll move that we update and approve Resolution 2022-24. The adjustments would be strike H4 and add a requirement, provide berms and trees sufficient to provide 80% opacity to the fence at year 3 on the north, east, and west sides of the structure.
Is there any issues for staff in monitoring that? Enforcing that?
So the year 3 would just, it'd be including plant species that reach maturity quicker. The specifically year 3, that's hard to enforce because plants, while they may grow quicker or slower, don't necessarily grow the same rate every year because of climate.
Yeah?
So it might be helpful to give a range so that there's an option, should we have a slower growing year? Because we can expect a certain amount of maturity in trees, but we don't know exactly how much maturity. So I just recommend some kind of range for staff to work within, if that's 2 to 3 or 3 to 5 or 3 to 4, or whatever the range might be.
I think the other side of it, Kevin, that's a fair point. In addition to just choosing things that grow faster or mature faster, you would also potentially start with larger sizes, would be the other way. to put it.
Yeah, that was already because that's already part of number 5 to include the spaded trees. I just didn't talk about that.
I would be fine with 3 to 5 years. I don't want to let it go too high, because then you end up with a long period where you're not going to get coverage.
What's the implication at year 7 when we have a drought and all the trees die?
That, I would cross that bridge when we get to it. I can't give it, I'm not sure how I would handle it, depending on how the screening looked with the, how many trees died out, where it was, things like that.
we've had issues about, in some other developments, landscaping going in and dying and it just sits there dead.
There's certain things with landscape warranties that we can do when the trees are under warranty. And
Isn't that the
regular
specific
inspections.
question?
Well,
What's
yeah, that's
the
part of it,
origin
and then
that?
we restart over, and then 3 to 5 years, what does that clock start again?
I have to take a look at the landscape warranty language. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I can get back to you with an answer on that, though.
To your question, generally, I would say we wouldn't necessarily start over if something was replaced.
Well, you wouldn't ask them to replace it with a tree that goes back to that same height as the one that just died, right?
Correct, yeah, it would be a new tree.
Right. So, it's just, it gives us a jump start in this plan, but that's about it after that point.
Yeah.
It's workable for staff, I support it.
I'm sorry, what?
Is it workable for staff?
I believe so.
Yeah, we perform regular landscape inspections, so that would be part of this, with this development, to make sure that they grow and reach the required screening, for example.
All right,
I don't think we had a second.
We haven't had a second.
I'll second it.
Before we vote, to the applicant, are there questions you have for us that we need to clarify in this vote? Specifics?
None at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Vote yay?
Yay.
Yay.
Yay. 4-0. Hi, guys. I think the delay helped with a better product.
Agreed.
Second item, Rush Creek Reserve, second edition, final plat and development agreement and final PUD. Just as a reminder or a note, this has gone through council like 18 times now. So, does somebody want to start the discussion on this one?
Well, my question would be for staff, is this, since it's a final, why is it wasn't on a consent agenda like prior?
Sure. Thank you for asking the question. So the reason that we wanted to bring this to the forefront on the council agenda, not on the consent agenda, it was just noting that there was a little bit of, there has been a requested change to PUD amendment that is not in front of us tonight, but there would be a request related to the townhomes. They're anticipating coming in with it, so we wanted to make sure the council knew that that would be something that they would be coming in the future.
And that change was
It's-
related to
It's
the
related
side
to
yards?
the setbacks for the townhome, or twin homes specifically, just the twin homes, based on the size of their proposed. When they got original approvals, we didn't have the plans for the twin homes, and so the side yard setbacks are off by about a foot, or maybe a little over a foot.
It kind of varies between,
Varies between the plans a little bit, but that's the main difference between what they would be looking for with the PUD amendment, is that change to that. Or if we would approve as, what we'd approve tonight would be what we saw previously. But if we wanted to give them some feedback on whether or not we'd be interested in an amendment, that could be something we could vocalize today, but we would like approval of the preliminary, or the final plat and PUD as presented here this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented right now, and then we want to go into discussion after.
I'll second.
I was going to discuss the change from the 15-foot separation between buildings that they're asking for. I never like when these preliminary plans deviate from the original approval for subsequent stages. I'm willing to consider it because it seems like it's a relatively small change, but I feel like the city should be getting something in exchange for the simplicity and flexibility we would be offering. So I gave a concept to staff just asking, one of the things that we love about this development, or that I like about this development, is they're planting 1,000 extra trees, and they're putting in more trees per lot than is required. I think we require 1, and it's either 3 or 4 per plot. Is it possible they can increase the sizes on some of those trees as a benefit to allowing the homes to be a little closer together? Sounds like they're willing to consider that from correspondence yesterday.
It sounds like they're willing to consider that. We don't have an answer in front of us today, as we don't currently have the PUD amendment in front of us.
So I'd be willing to approve now, but we need to see the PUD amendment have a suitable inducement for the city to accommodate the change. When that comes through.
Do you have a suggestion on that?
The way it's written, we would approve this, but the PUD amendment would have to follow.
Yeah,
And if we don't amend the PUD,
yeah.
they would need to make the houses smaller to fit into the setbacks.
Yes, so what, but I'm talking about the exchange. What do you think they should, for the flexibility? The enhancement of the project if, in exchange for the flexibility of allowing.
You know, a suitable inducement, I think, could be for each of the homes that will be impacted by these narrower setbacks. Maybe those homes get bag and burlap trees instead of the 2.5-inch caliper trees. That could be one way to do it. I'm open to suggestions too, but.
Aren't PUD amendments and the exchange something that's better for the town, not the individual homes?
Yeah, if there are other ideas, I'm certainly open.
No, that's what I'm asking for, is like, I'm just wondering.
Well, depending on where these trees are that he's talking about, it could have a benefit to the town, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So-
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm just, so for when they see this and we say, in exchange, we'd like something in return, it would be nice to have a such as. And then it sounds like you already gave one, and Alan's okay with it. So I'm fine with that. Do you have any other things you want to talk about, or should we vote?
I have just a laundry list, short one. I'm concerned with the drainage. The ditch on County Road 10, on the north side of 10, on the back side of the townhomes, it's full of water. That all used to drain to the north on that field that was there, and now it's not going anywhere. Silt fences are underwater. It's significant. I'd really like to see that resolved, or somebody tell me, is it going to be drained into water in the sewer? And then my biggest thing that's in my call is just the cleanliness, the orderly. We've got signs laying down. There's Tyvek blowing up against the silt fences. I've stopped numerous times to pick it up when it's been stuck to our park chain link and stuff. I hate the fact that we can't keep things clean and orderly. I know the developers always say, well, I can't control the wind. You can pick up on a daily basis, not wait for one of us to bring it to anybody's attention. But I'm mostly concerned about that pond that is now in the ditch.
There was, when this first came through it, there was an issue raised about water actually leaving the property to the north and flowing over those homes in the north, right, in the creek. There was supposed to be a lot of discussion with
Yeah.
those landowners
In
and
the
the developer,
watershed.
right?
And the watershed.
In the
Yep.
watershed. So did that go anywhere? Do we know what happened with that?
If I may, I'll answer Councilmember Vanderkamp's first, and then I'll follow up with Schultz. To your question about that ponding area, that gets addressed with second edition, as well as the turn lanes that were approved tonight. So that area, the turn lanes actually get built to the north there, and that material there was getting flopped for the turn lane, so I'd say in a month or two.
That'll open the
more or less,
drainage and that'll go
all get
away.
accommodated, and that all goes away, that'll actually get filled in, the turn lanes, the road gets built out to the north,
Okay.
new turn lane, so effectively tonight, you're addressing that problem.
Got it.
that
Thank you.
Temporary situation. To Councilmember Schultz's question, there was a off-site adjacent stormwater element that was talked about with preliminary plat, and there was a line item placeholder with the first edition, or identified with the first edition, that referred, that delayed it to the second edition. As part of the first edition of construction, MI and city staff and the watershed and all the other agencies had active conversations and actually advanced that stormwater improvement project with the first edition, so in advance of what they were required to do. They would have been required to do it with the second edition. They actually did it with the first edition. It's, substantially completed in terms of that. It still has to be restored, monitored, finished up, but the primary component of that work was done last fall. So we're still in ongoing conversations with everyone. The landowners to the north, we're in ongoing conversation. Nothing's been officially accepted, but they've been complying with that requirement of the preliminary plat. And so that's actually noted in this DA. So in terms of the letter of credit and all that, so it's buried in the thick document. But we did note that they accomplished that work with the first phase, so we didn't take any additional letter of credit.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? No.
And we have a motion and a second to approve both resolutions, correct?
Yes. So motion on the table. I'll, can I get it? Huh?
Call the vote?
Call the vote. Yeah. Yays?
Yay.
No nays, 4-0. Okay, so item number C, Town Center Edition. Do you guys want to have a conversation, or it's a final plat again? Is there a reason why a final plat is coming?
Yes, so thank you, Mayor and Council. The reason we wanted to bring forward the final plat today for St. Therese is there is not necessarily unusual, but one of the things that we do have included in this final plat is an agreement between St. Therese and the Rush Creek Reserve to do some of the off-site improvements. So we thought it was worthy to talk with council and outline that those two groups are going to be working together to work on some of those off-site improvements. And so that's really why we wanted to bring it forward. At this point, we don't have any major changes to the final plat itself. I would note, following this item, we do have just an extension of the purchase agreement for that. They would have had to close by May 5th. So we just have an extension of the purchase agreement as the next item to approve. But
Okay.
anything I'm missing, Kevin?
That was just, it was that part of this involves the sale of city property, so that was pulled for that reason.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, all voting yes?
Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
4-0 yays. What's the verbiage I'm supposed to be using there?
A motion to accept resolution, or adopt resolution. You're good. We can just adopt the entire, everything that was included in that particular, and this was
I brought
just one resolution.
Robert's Rules of Order with me, just in case I came upon a stumbling block.
So we are good to go. We just approved 2022-45 for the
Okay.
town center. And then, if I may, Mayor, that we did have one addition.
Yes.
The item, it is the third amendment, the purchase agreement. It just allows us to extend that closing date so we can get all of our ducks in a row to sell the city land for St. Therese. So that it extends that to the June 17th date. We anticipate in sometime in May to do that. I don't think we finalized the exact date, but we will have that. We'll be doing a set sale resolution. There's a special resolution to move forward with the sale of city property. That'll be coming to you on May 12th. So if I could get a motion to execute the third amendment to the land purchase agreement.
I'll make a motion.
It's second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Jeremy?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
John? Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
2020 got you used to the roll call votes, right?
I know.
Yes, sorry, I put those in there.
I know the verbiage, all in favor.
Perfect.
we already did 9A.
We did.
So we will move to 9B, Administration Development Staffing Plan.
Perfect.
Brian Dejewski asked for this 5 years ago.
Do we have to have public
I
comment
was
for
just
this?
going to say, if you would like, we could do a public comment for all the items under new business, if we'd like.
Yes.
Anyone in the audience wishing to comment on new business can come up to the podium, state your name and address for us. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or click raise your hand under the reactions button.
If
Mayor.
council is okay, I would prefer to have this be a presentation.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just ready my presentation here. So Mayor and Council, before you tonight, I am asking for us to look at a potential reorganization of the administration department. With our current structure is an administrative services director. We have a finance manager and an accountant, a deputy clerk, and administrative assistant. We included in the 2022 budget a half-time position for utility billing and a full-time position for one full-time FTE for human resources and communication. And then the administrative services director does oversee the IT contract. So that is our current setup, the 2 items listed in red or budgeted for this year. So in looking at our administration department, I am recommending some changes to the organizational structure, and then I can talk through kind of the next steps on how we'd move forward with this. So currently, the Administrative Services Director for the city oversees human resources, communications, the IT contract, finances, all very important functions for the city, but as I have found in my time in the role, and even when our previous administrator was here, it's a very broad role. And so the idea with this reorganization allows us to have individuals who are assigned and tasked to those different things, such as finance and clerk functions, which allows that administrative services director to really focus on what I'd like them to focus on is human resources, and then leading that team and planning for the future. So really, and then being that person who can move forward with policy and assist us with moving ordinance changes and things like that forward. So the vision of the administration department is to make it a little bit more departmental, so we can really kind of have those frontline staff work on those day-to-day things, and then build some more capacity in the administrative services director position to really focus on HR and those long-term plans here. So we did have, though, budgeted for 1.5 positions. What we are going to recommend is having a utility billing and human resource clerk title to potentially be changed, but the idea is utility billing and human resources related to payroll. Those are confidential kind of tasks that be working with the finance manager. And then we have had budgeted a communications position, and we'd be looking at having a communications position pair with a need with the Public Works Department in having someone who takes phone calls specifically for Public Works. So this would kind of pair that half-time position that we had and allow for us to kind of fill that need that we've seen. At the last council meeting, we did move forward with a permit technician appointment, just knowing that building permits is significant, and so that's why in the 2022 budget we had the permit technician. We had some sort of help, and we determined it would be better to have a permit technician piece, and knowing that we would eventually need this administrative assistant position within Public Works. So part of the plan does outline a transition of our deputy city clerk position into managing elections, and then they would oversee those administrative assistants, creating, kind of narrowing the scope of a vision to give that individual in the administrative services director position that ability to not be so focused on working with each individual person to move all of those things forward. So that is a bit about my plan. One of the things I would ask people this evening would be to, if we're comfortable with this, with the hiring of the permit technician, we would like to move forward with an administrative assistant position. That was part of, the Public Works reorganization, was noting that we would get the type of administrative assistant, the permit technician, use in Public Works, and then retain an administrative assistant within the administration department. And then we'd look at job descriptions for updating those for the administrative services director, finance manager, and clerk, and transition to the city clerk. And then we would be hiring those two positions that we've had budgeted for this year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have one.
Sure.
Looking at the utility billing human resources clerk, the job title is a little wonky. I was going to
Yes,
propose.
it's pretty wonky.
I am.
Would it make sense because it reports to the finance manager?
Sure.
Does payables, receivables clerk capture it maybe a little bit more generically? You might get better applicants if it's more of a standard title. Just a thought.
What did you call it?
Payables, receivables clerk.
So I wouldn't think that would fit that, that position, because the payables and receivable would be under the accountant still. This would be for utility billing and payroll, which are not payable and receivables.
We have not set on any sort of titles yet. We're just at the beginning stages. I did, as we would review, anytime we do a hire, we do look at our job descriptions. The job description in front of you today has been graded. I graded at the same grade we currently, I graded 1 point differently, I should say, but very similar to what we currently have today. And we did anticipate, we did project some potential grades and what would need to see at the end of the day what they come in as, and we would, that would help us if we had any concern with budget. We'd certainly make amendments to when they would start to ensure that we didn't go over budget.
My only reason for voicing the concern is if it's a narrowly defined title. In the private sector, I found it can be really hard to attract excellent applicants. So if there's a way to broaden your net a little bit, and I'll certainly leave it to figure out what the right title would be, but try to keep it as open-ended as you can, just so you get.
So we could go with an accounting clerk title, and that would encompass those duties too, if that sounds more appealing.
I would think so, personally.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, it's confusing to have human resources.
With
in-
utility billing.
Within the accounting
Yep.
area, because people would probably tend not to apply if they thought they were gonna do human resource work,
Or vice versa.
or vice versa, yeah. So the top of this chart, that's your backfill,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So between the two charts too, there's, and maybe this is just a typo, but verbiage goes from deputy clerk to city clerk.
It is not a typo. So one of the things that, in order to move some of those the clerk duties from the administrative services director, those running elections and doing data practices, I would like us to move from a deputy clerk to a city clerk position. So that way, the administrative services director wouldn't have to sign documents. Michelle has done most of the minutes and prepares the resolution, so it would stay with that position.
Okay. So the narrative says it's 3 hires, but you're expecting it to only be 1.5 FTE.
So right now, we have budgeted for one, so there are a few different things happening. And what is proposed is the Administrative Services Director, that'd be backfilling, so that would not be a new position. The Finance Manager, we'd amend the job description to ensure that it outlined who it was supervising.
Yep.
The City Clerk is, I would envision doing a reorganization of the deputy clerk position, which we currently have, so that's not a new position. We currently have an accountant, and that is a current position.
Mhm.
The utility billing and the communications position would be the two that would be new positions. We do have a vacant administrative assistant position with the moving of the permit from Shauna, from administrative assistant to permit tech. So that was all part of the original Public Works plan. If we had an internal applicant who wanted to move forward, we were going to retain an administrative assistant for the city, just to have someone to answer phone calls.
So that's a backfill, that's
It's
not
a
a new hire?
backfill,
'cause
not
the
a
new hire was already
So
paid.
there are two
then.
backfills, and then
Okay,
two new hires. We do anticipate, we had in our long-term staffing plan to have a Public Works administrative assistant. We believe that there is funds available within vacant positions that we have for this year within the Public Works Department, and starting the utility billing position late, that we believe that we could fill that other half of that FTE. So we're going to propose in 2023 some sort of additional administrative help for Kevin. That was in the long-term financial plan.
okay. So we're, instead of the narrative saying, basically indicating 3 hires, we're really looking at 2 hires.
2 hires.
One of which would probably be a part-time employee.
We would like, we'd actually anticipate it being, it would be two FTE. So I
Oh,
just noted
so you're
that
just
one
splitting
of
it
them's
between the
not
2
currently-
functions. Okay.
Yes, one of them's not current, the .5 FTE is not currently budgeted. We do believe we have the budget to include that, and we have been staff planning for that additional administrative assistant help within the Public Works Department.
Okay.
On the Communications Public Works Administrative Assistant,
Yes.
I would also encourage, can you find a way to make that title more typical?
Yes.
And either have it be more geared toward administrative assistant with communication responsibilities, or a communication coordinator with administrative assistant responsibilities too, just so you can get a really good pool. Because again, you can kind of turn people off if you.
It is very
You want-
insightful, and I appreciate that.
Thread the needle between being so vague, nobody wants the job, and being so specific, nobody wants the job. That's all we ask.
But make it exciting.
We will put together position profiles to talk about all the great things we're doing and try to really get some splash out there with, it's a tight job market, so we're gonna really wanna make sure that we're talking about all of the opportunities that these positions have, so. So if you're comfortable with this, we continue to move forward with drafting the job descriptions for the other pieces and then backfilling the administrative assistant position. If I could get a motion to authorize us to hire for that, and then based on consensus, I'd be happy to move forward if you're comfortable with it.
So, just as a side, if there was a possibility, not related to this motion, of telling us what the next hires would be, like have even an extended time, because we're always sitting here like wondering, how does the team develop if we get, X more people, or how does, like, where?
Give me a moment, I can pull up our long-range staffing plan that now each year it changes because there's always different things that are happening, but we have through 2025 in our 5-year financial management plan, noting that each year we do look at it to make sure that we're adjusting to the market and adjusting to the needs of the city, because sometimes we overshoot and sometimes we undershoot on what we think, when we think we might need folks, so.
You have it up right now?
I can, if you give me just a quick moment, I can certainly, oops.
Where does the development superintendent fall, Kevin? The next one?
May 12th, hopefully we have a job description for you to approve and it can
That-
go out. So.
I can give you just our, what we had approved last year. We do need to amend our 5-year financial management plan, or we will be doing a revision to that this year. We do look at that every year. So that will be one of the key components to that.
Oh, we don't need to have my pet project come up on the board. We can skip that for today, but,
Just so you know, we
Yeah.
are thinking of that, and certainly that could be something we can try to think of when we're presenting these for you.
okay. Do we need two motions?
It-
One to add, or can we put them all in one motion?
We can just, if we could have one motion to authorize us to hire the administrative assistant, and then I think as long as we have consensus, I don't need a.
Yeah, okay. And we've had two already, haven't we? Or I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Wait, are we actually looking for a motion? Because it's just, you're looking for direction on this.
Yes, I would
But
like
there's a
to,
motion to hire.
If we could get authorization to hire the backfilled administrative assistant position, that would be great. And then we just go forward with drafting the other job description.
Okay.
And then we bring each step of the way, we'll update you on if there are any changes to the budget, should something grade higher or lower, and then just so you have an overall view. So there'll be multiple steps to this process this year.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nicer if the packet would have said you're looking for a motion to hire. It says you're looking.
I
looking
apologize,
for
that was-
direction on drafting job description changes.
Yes, I apologize. I put that in my follow-up email this week, but it was a very long email. So I apologize on that.
Or is that in part of this?
It is
File.
in one of the pieces of the
supplement added this evening.
supplemental, just on a timeline, we're just trying to continue,
Okay.
to not have a delay in filling the administrative assistant role.
Do you have a candidate?
We do not necessarily have a candidate, so if you know of anyone, please send them our way. We'll go ahead and post probably early next week.
I think those two could do it.
And then we'd be bringing that back. There should have been a job description.
There's a job description, but there's nothing in the staff report asking for a motion. That's the thing I was looking for.
Oh, I apologize, it
You know,
was in the
because
email
we're
itself.
taking action on something that's actually not on the agenda, per se.
Is that a problem?
So I think that we ask for consideration and authorization to proceed, but I would like to formally ask for us to move forward with authorizing that. It's certainly up to you. If you'd like for us to wait until the May 12th meeting, we certainly could.
Well, I'm thinking it would be nice for a public disclosure that we're actually, what we vote on is in the agenda packet versus, otherwise you could come up and ask us for anything during the meeting, right? And we could make motions and,
It doesn't have the right, it wouldn't have, in this case, it wouldn't have the right to go through public comment or public viewing of a decision that's more than just clerical.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and if.
Unfortunately, I think we have to have it on the agenda before. But
I'll recall my second to John's motion.
Well,
put
we
it
can
on the
vote
May-
and,
We can put it on the May 12th.
and
meeting.
all vote no, nay.
Or that, yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, yes.
I seem to recall that we've had requests to hire added to the agenda at the meeting in the past, like for police officers and things like that.
Yeah, but there's actual packet or some material that goes with it that says what the actions they're looking for.
I did not include that.
We don't
I
have that.
included that in the email, and I included the job description, but I didn't include.
I think they historically always have the ask of hiring a police officer in the packet,
Okay.
rather than just
We can-
Matt talking about body armor and then saying, oh, by the way, we want to hire another police officer. No one's saying that. I'm just being ridiculous about the example, but if it doesn't hurt anything,
No,
we should
we
probably
can
just
do that.
err on the side of being cautious about.
Are we comfortable putting that on the consent agenda?
Yeah, it's
I
fine.
am,
We can always
yes.
pull it and discuss it.
Yeah.
So really, right now, we're just looking for direction to proceed with
Direction.
drafting.
Yep.
So we
We don't need
Do
to
we-
vote for that, we just need.
we
to
can
decide.
pull it.
Just can,
Don't we have to pull it?
This?
We have a motion and a second.
I
Do we
think-
need to pull the motion, or are we okay?
Gene had rescinded his.
I can, or we can.
Who made the original motion then?
You,
Oh, and I.
or we could
I rescind.
roll call and we all say no and then go back to recommending them
Yeah, but
draft
then
the,
we'd vote on something that was
true?
not on the agenda.
So it'd be better I rescind and you say
I
never
rescind
mind?
Also, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Sorry
for
to
the
be a
discussion.
pain.
No, it was one of those things that I.
It was a clerical error.
It was supposed to be in there, and I didn't realize it wasn't, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so the next item, 10B, I think we all read it, seems extremely straightforward. Instead of having, there'll be someone that accepts bikes that come in with the metals. And the downside is, in theory, if someone brought thousands of bikes in and we'd lose on the revenue of the metals, the recycling. If this is someone's baby and they want to talk about it or whatever, for me, I'm okay just making a motion. I'll make it myself, make a motion to be okay with providing the opportunity for someone to pick up bikes. Unless is there some liability or staff something that,
I spoke with the city attorney about just disposing of public property, and he believes that it would be in essence recycling, so he felt comfortable
Okay.
with it. The program does work with other counties and cities to do this at recycling locations typically, so this is just because we're having an event, an opportunity for them to reach out to folks in our area.
Do we know how residents can participate in this program if they can't make it to cleanup days?
They have lots of information on their website, Bikes for Kids.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Staff reports, active Corcoran applications.
We do have a few additional agenda items, if I could, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, 10C,
10C.
which was immediately rescinded.
Which was
So we moved to
rescinded
10D.
by the applicant, and then 10D. The city received word that we did have access to some funds through MnDOT because of the Coronavirus Relief and Supplemental Appropriations Act. We have about $31,899 that we can allocate towards something. We are recommending that we allocate those funds towards the City Center Drive and 79th Place Improvements Project. That's something that's upcoming, and that we know that there are city contributions towards that project. That's what we'd like to recommend, just moving forward with, and we could do a motion to authorize or allocate these funds to that. We do have until 2024 to use the funds.
There are no strings attached?
We look, Maggie and myself and Kevin looked at the FAQs that came with the state, and we do not believe that there are any conditions. You don't even have to use it on municipal state aid roads. So there's a bit more flexibility with these funds than you would see other state aid funds. So
If for some reason we can't use it on that project, the project doesn't develop to that point in that time frame, can we reclassify it to another project?
yes,
Okay.
we should be able to.
It just has to be just project specific, we can't just stick it in like a road fund or anything like that.
It has to be allocated to a project, so we're allocating it from
Yeah.
you guys to a more specific project than MinDOT would require. So if, I think we could still change it. It's really a documentation thing and where we're putting it. That's
Okay.
really the concern. So we're allocating it towards a street construction project, and that's as general as MinDOT cares. And from you, we're asking more specifically so we can track it internally. So assuming, St. Therese got approved tonight, that project has to go for St. Therese to be built. So
Yeah.
it's a project that will very likely happen.
Okay.
Do you know the formula that they hand out this money?
On this one, I do not. We certainly could send you over their FAQs that related to it. We had a small portion of the larger amount.
It's through the MinDOT State Aid Office, so similar to what they do, they do a calculation and allocation every year based on the condition of your roads, the number of miles of your roads, and your traffic counts.
Yeah.
I don't want to assume, but I assume they kind of use that similar calculation with whatever pool they had and distributed it equitably on a prorated basis. So I don't know that for sure, we can verify, but that would be my assumption.
I'd be curious, but
We got very similar amounts as, Dayton would and comparable
Yeah.
cities, so.
it's almost like, what does it have to do with COVID? And why do we get no allocation from anybody for the roads in this town when it's a cut through because they won't do 94? It's an old saw and it just happens constantly here.
Mr. Mayor? One other opportunity that we might have, and I wanted to use this as an opportunity to discuss, the water project around Garages 2 on that Horseshoe Bend area in the southwest corner of the city. We had spent some time last fall talking that one through. Estimate was like 80 to 100,000. Would that be, I would assume that might go forward sooner than the St. Therese project. Maybe this would be a good way to offset some of those costs.
It's a good question. I think St. Therese is probably more of a certainty. We're doing the feasibility study and you haven't got that presented. Hopefully, we're trying to parallel that with Garages 2 application. I really think it's a horse apiece, because either way, we're probably gonna have to finance a little bit for either of those projects or reallocate, so I think we can certainly change that. I don't think MinDOT cares, so we can certainly choose to do that later.
Yeah,
But I think actually St. Therese is the more for sure project at this point, so it might save us a step in conversation, but that's just an observation.
Is the Horseshoe Bend more of a waste, stormwater?
It's a stormwater drainage. So it's this would have no questions at all what you spent it on. It's bread and butter obvious, so if you're worried about being audited or anything, it's definitely smacks it right down the middle. So from that standpoint too, it's easier if we do it here because we're probably gonna have to do financing if we move forward with that project or reallocate, so it's just easier, cleaner.
Can I ask another question, please?
Sure.
Are there any, like sometimes the state will say, if you put in 50,000 of your own money, then we'll give you 250,000 to do something. Is there any way that we can use this in a multiplicative way where we?
I'm not aware of any. I think you have to specifically designate it to a use, so I don't know if you can use it as a multiplier for a grant or something.
Yeah, okay.
I think that probably blurs the lines on some of the allocations. So,
Wouldn't it be funny if we used their own funds and then had it multiplied through one of their other programs. But, okay.
I think their intention is to just.
I just wanted to see if if there was an opportunity. Yeah, okay. Do we need to make a motion?
If we could just have a motion to designate these funds towards the City Center Drive and 79th Street Improvement Project or other project as council
moved.
would be.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. 4-0.
And then the last item that we had was item 10E. Due to my upcoming travels, I would like to I'd like to ask council to allow Matt to act as administrator while I'm gone. Should there need to be any signatures that need to take place that cannot wait until I return or cannot be taken electronically, or there need to be an emergency meeting called. So I just ask that council appoint Matt as acting administrator from April 30th, April 30th through the 10th of May.
Has he ever taken on that role before?
He has. I actually stole a staff report from a 2018 trip that Brad took. So,
All right.
with Matt's name already on it, so I just had to change the dates.
And he's willing to accept that role?
He is willing to, he is not here, and we were joking a bit about that, that he wouldn't be here, but it wasn't, he didn't draw this short straw. Him and Kevin and I all talked about it, and Kevin wants dibs next time. Or he doesn't really want
demands
dibs, but.
I think we should just have Maggie do it.
I mean, we certainly could, appoint whoever is, council would like to, but.
Do we need a motion?
If we could just get a motion, just that it formalizes it should.
I'll make a motion.
something-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you. With that, Mayor, we do have those staff reports if you wanted to, if you had any questions. Otherwise, they're in your packet for review.
Same with the financial reports?
Yes, yes. So at this time, we're unaudited. We will be coming in, our auditors will be joining us next in a 2 weeks here, about 2 weeks, and we'll be doing audit of our 2021 financials, and then what we provided today is where we are today. So,
Mr. Mayor, I have a brief question for staff.
Yes.
At the Parks and Trails Commission, we talked through Central Park expansion revision, and there was a ballpark estimate that the first phase would be approximately $2 million to complete, and the fund had around 1.4, 1.6 million in it. But I know we've been approving several final plats of different phases of different developments. Is it within our fingertips, or maybe at arm's distance, to forecast through year end what we would expect to come in based on approvals that we've given, just to give that commission a sense for their ability to start work next year?
we can certainly look at that. I know we've actually talked internally about doing that to see what we have applications for. So it's one of the things Kevin actually has been working on. But
Yeah, we're actively tallying up to see what the totals will be based on the current applications and forecasted applications for future editions of final plats to see what would come in at each stage.
Okay.
So,
Thank you very
so
much.
we can work with Jessica to provide that at a future Parks and Trails meeting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Can I ask one question about that plan? The elimination of the lit field turned into a parking lot, is that the way I read that in the packet when I received it as such?
I am not sure.
Can I ask the, the lit field, the baseball field that's lit next to the ice rinks and those kind of things, when I looked at the overall plan, that's going to turn into a parking lot? Was, well, just a quick look, I don't need a whole ton out of you, I just,
Eventually, they're gonna be gone.
it's long-term, okay.
But there really isn't It's not at that point yet.
Okay.
I think
Thank
the
you.
first phase parking lot is really over top of it's an expansion of the existing old Rockford parking lot.
I saw that where it goes closer to the ball fields and stuff, but the plan that I was looking at showed that the lit field, the lighted field would go away. And I didn't see where any other field would get lit or anything. Do we have that as an option? Is that something that Parks wants? I'm asking that, so.
It's going to move, but it's not gonna go right away, because we're talking about moving. the
So there'd
sign
still be one lit field at some point.
At some point.
Okay.
There's many other things going in.
Yeah.
so.
Thanks. That's all I had on that.
Okay. Anything else for 11?
We do not.
Okay, 12C, schedule item. Did the work session change from code to natural resources?
So it's code items related to natural resources. I just tried to title it related to, we had 4 categories related to
Okay.
natural resources, buffers, tree sizes, and a few other things.
Impressed that I noticed that?
I am very impressed, and I know the residential standards is just kind of, the titles that I put in temporarily are just kind of the broader categories. We did have a few different topics under each one of them.
Okay, good.
If I may, on that schedule, I probably will not be at the May 12th work session.
Does that mean I get to be mayor again? That's work session.
I'll be at May 12th council meeting, but not that work session.
If you could ask to have his vote twice as a council member, potentially.
Oh,
I believe the
sweet.
mayor
Yes.
is going to be there. I'm not sure that actually ever work, but, we could
Worth
talk about
asking.
it.
We're expecting a full council on May 12th, aren't we?
As of right now, we are expecting a full council on May 12th.
You gonna skip?
There-
Play hooky?
I
I'll be
think
there.
There are a couple early grading items, and then West Side Tire and Bechtold Farms are probably the 2 big planning items. We're going to have the water connection fees that we talked about for water supply planning. We'll be making some suggested edits there. And then we will be talking about an initial discussion of Hackamore. We've been talking with Medina on that project.
I think the gravel's a good look. I think we should just pull all the asphalt and just have it all gravel.
All in favor? Aye.
Is there any way?
We didn't have that on the agenda. You're just opening a can of worms. I like it, though.
Somebody just started crying.
Yeah.
The Medina residents. Is it 75%? Like, what is that?
So we'd be finishing up the 75% design.
Okay, so
Oh, no,
it's
we're
not
at-
a
Or we're
pay,
at-
it's
we're
still
at-
balanced? It's still a balanced pay plan between us and
Yeah.
Medina?
Yes,
Well,
so the
that's-
75% does not, we've gotten from 75, we need
We
the
haven't,
final.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. We had 2 phases. So when we initially had a 50/50 agreement with Medina to design to 75.
Yeah.
So we had 2 interims. We brought 2 designs at 30%. They were pretty similar, but there were some options, full 3-lane versus 2-lane with dedicated turn lanes. There wasn't a ton of difference, but we then advanced it to 75. So we sit at 75. The next step would be to bring that 75 to 100, and then there would be another decision. It will likely go through permitting and award. So you'd have to finalize another cost share agreement with Medina on how that's actually going to work, or whatever the financials end up being. That's what we'd present, and then we'd likely recommend bidding it, and then you'd have an opportunity to see what the actual bids were. It's kind of the next couple steps down the line, and a lot of conversations between now and then, but this is kind of a reintroduction to a potential project.
I shudder to think what next spring will look like on that road. Any chance that could happen this year?
You'll shudder, all right.
To construct
You'll
that
lose
this
your
year?
suspension and everything.
To construct the full project this year would be very challenging. If we could come to an agreement, it's possible to be breaking ground this time next year if things were to come together. in a reasonable timeline. So there's still an opportunity for next year, but I think this year's window for a significant project would be closing due to permitting and other agreements we'd have to set in place.
And at that time, the plan would be to go from 101 to 116.
At right now, the whole vision of the corridor is from 101 all the way through the Tavera development. So it actually picks up, it stops short of Snyder.
Got it.
But it actually extends to the new connection to Hackmore, or through the turn lanes and the new connection to, I think it's Tamarack will be the
Yeah.
name of the street, to Hackmore. So it's the full route. And then keep in mind, the last meeting, I think it was, where Plymouth, advanced their project faster than us. I think they used some federal money and whatnot, but then we did recently participate in the signal improvements at 101, which would have been part of the broader project.
But we were looking at it in a three-phase deal, right?
Potentially, we didn't know 2 years ago how it would parlay, how it would come together. Again, more to come here in the next
Yeah.
meeting. I don't want to
Right.
get ahead of ourselves and present the information, so we can have a conversation next.
Okay, so we're still in the phasing part of it, right? We're not looking at a full run.
I think a full run option will be probably introduced to you guys with more information at the next meeting.
Okay.
Ideally.
But that could be parsed out as part of the conversation, but we're expecting to introduce an option for the full section.
Fingers crossed.
And we're working closely with the city of Medina and kind of overlaying our discussions, so we both, and talking about what's going to be presented at both, so you all have the same information.
I have a question on the Diamond Lake Regional Trail.
Yes.
Has there been some new development there, or is it just a representation of what we've seen before?
I think that there, if I do recall, it's been a while since we put this on the calendar, but my recollection is there was a comment period that they wanted to come in and present to councils as part of this larger comment period, so it's a timing piece, and I think they just want to, it's been a little while since they've done a presentation, so it's another reintroduction to it, just keeping people in the loop of how the planning's going.
Is it the east-west one or the north-south one?
That's north-south. Diamond Lake is the north-south.
Yeah.
And Weaver Lake is the east-west. We haven't heard from them on that one at all.
No, we have not. No, there is, and then there's one, I can't remember if there's one further north outside of Corcoran that's east, west as well, but
Yeah,
there's a few different corridors there.
yes, yeah. There are two that go east-west, one that goes north.
But where we left that one, we approved the master plan, right? And they
I
were,
believe so.
The diamond one?
yeah, the north-south one.
I believe we gave them feedback. I think this is a culmination of all of if there were any other changes. I
Okay.
think that's my recollection. I can confirm with Jessica, and if that is different, I will let you all know.
Yeah, I don't recall an approval that we approved anything other than giving formal feedback.
I think we gave formal feedback, so this is the next step in
We-
the process.
We did give formal feedback on that trail because they wanted to have us vote and make it official that we were okay with the route as it was on the paper. Because I voted against it because I didn't think they had investigated the route enough.
Okay.
So.
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, it was Brad was pretty feisty with me that day. But we both wanted the trail. Okay, anything else? Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? Nay? I want to keep being mayor, so. But motion passes 3-1, meeting adjourned.